pouring hot water on the Ferrari outside of the post office in Dumont, New Jersey. When we started Gotham Dream Cars, we started with one car, a Euro spec Ferrari 360. And I got involved a couple of weeks after the company started. Noah started the company, and I quickly found out he knew nothing about cars. And he's like, oh yeah, you know, one of my customers just banged up the fender and it's going to be down for 4 weeks. And I'm like, what are you talking about, down for 4 weeks? Like, that is like, it just barely like hit it. And he's like, yeah, it's going to Classic Coach in New Jersey and it's going to cost $15,000 to repair. I'm like, dude, $15,000 for that? Like, it's paint, it's red, it's a rental car. You can get that fixed. And now you can fix them for a couple $100s. But I'm like, you can get that fixed for like $2,500 and it'll be done by the end of the week. And he's like, really? You got to show me. And I had it done for him in like 3 days for $2,500. And next thing you know, I'm part of the rental company. Part of it is you need somebody who knows cars. And I was the guy who knew cars. I was out street racing. I knew cars. I didn't know exotics, but I knew they couldn't be very much different than what I was playing with already. So that car, that Euro Spec 360, it had such a storied life because it was rented. It was like our only car for 6 months until we got our Gallardo. But after that, I mean, we ran that car for a couple of years. And when we were borrowing money back then, it was one of those things that we couldn't get in and out of the cars. We were locked into like a 3-year lease on that car. It was and then when I say a lease, it's not like a lease that you would think of. It's more like a business lease. So the balloon payment, it never makes sense to return it. So we ran that car for a while. We did a bunch of dream car tours in like 2005 and 2006. So the mileage really started to climb. And people started complaining about the mileage. Like, dude, this car is pretty ratty. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That car's perfectly fine. And I'm a pretty like laid back guy with condition, but like from a business perspective, this car had nothing wrong with it. Somebody was jump starting it and they like put the positive to the negative or something. Something happened that it shorted out the gauge cluster. And it's like, oh, gauge cluster reads 5s across the board. So now it's 555 kilometers. So now we got a car reading in kilometers and it's at 555,000. So we bring it to the dealer. We're like, okay, we can get you a new gauge cluster and this and that. And we're like, well, does it reading accurately? They're like, yeah, just reading in kilometers. I'm like, all right, let's keep it like this for a while. Nobody complained because nobody believed that there was 555,000 kilometers on it. And they're like, oh, they thought it was like, how many miles on it? I don't know. It's a couple of years old. It's been in the fleet. Oh, it's great. We love it. And the customer satisfaction went from like here and the people like looking, like a lot of people will rent and like look for something to complain about just to be like, oh, just give me $100 back and we're cool. When we did that, the odometer changed. We're like, oh, look, it's reading in kilometers. We'll reset the trip kilometer. So we gave them the conversion. Nobody had a problem with it from there on out. Fast forward to a dream car tour a couple of, I don't know, maybe half a year later, we did actually swap the gauge cluster eventually and set the odometer to the correct mileage. Then we put the sticker in the door because the odometer was changed. So we did everything we were supposed to do. But it was driving down the Palisades Parkway on a dream car tour, and I got a call from Noah, who was running tours with me. And I was back at the office. He was out there, and I get a call that the Ferrari was on fire on the side of the parkway. And at this point in time, it's like, we're like, all right, let's get ready to sell this thing. It's like approaching 100,000 miles. And it was just time to go. And the car knew that. And it decided to set itself on fire. We never traced back the exact cause. You could blame a guy for like keeping the revs up too much or something, but that doesn't really start the fire. Driving it like that may not be the best thing for the car, but ultimately it's not the cause of the fire. Something else causes the fire. The car catches fire, and I'm like, oh, I want to come film this. And they're like, well, what should we do? Is bring over the fire extinguisher. I'm like, throw the fire extinguisher in the trees. There are no fire extinguishers on that tour. Like, you do not want to put that, you don't want a 100,000 mile Ferrari with fire damage. Like, we don't want that built. There happened to be no fire extinguishers there. I don't think there were any in the trees either, but let's just assume that there were no fire extinguishers on the premises. I'm driving up. I'm like, I'm going to come see this. This has got to be cool. Like, I'm making videos. I'm making DVDs. So I want to come document. And like listening to 1010 Wins, which is our local news, like AM radio news thing. And they're like, stay away from the Palisades Parkway. And they're doing this whole thing. Like, there's a car on fire at exit 7. So like, I'm going northbound, the car was coming southbound, and we're talking wall-to-wall traffic. Like, because a Ferrari just burned down on the side of the road, and you got a bunch of other exotic cars parked there. There was absolute gridlock on my side of the highway and the northbound side, there was an accident from people rubbernecking looking at it. So you have an accident over here with injuries. You got that, and it just turned into a complete show because this one car was on fire. And I was like, I'm going to miss it. Like, I got to go. So I start driving on the grass. And I'm literally driving this Acura TL on the grass. People like trying to get in front of me. Like, dude, what are you going to do? Like, I'm driving on the grass already. You really don't think I'm just going to drive around you? So ultimately, like, I cut over when we get to the accident. I get up there and this car is just gloriously burnt to a crisp. And like the only thing I could say was salvageable would be the like front trunk, but the cops like pried it open to get to the battery. I'm like, the battery's not even in there. It's like under the passenger side footwell. But thanks for ruining the only part of the car that had value. But ultimately, that car that started the business, we got paid very well on that car. I don't remember who the insurance company was. It was our insurance company that paid for it. It wasn't a fault of the customer, but it was one of those things that it was just a wild life cycle for a car like that. I mean, the car saw tons of miles, very reliable, believe it or not. I learned the shortcomings of the Ferrari with that car because like we were doing a lot more like driving to deliveries and everything because we didn't have all the trucks and the trailers, or it was just easier to just drive it in and out. And since it was in the winter and we had to keep the utilization up to pay the bills, I would drive that car. And I remember once I took it to the post office, and the completely opposite now. Took it to the post office in the winter. I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to the post office. I'm young and I'm an idiot. I don't have to put on a jacket. So I go in like a t-shirt to the post office to mail out DVDs, and I take the Ferrari because it was like on the end of the driveway or whatever it was. We ran the company effectively out of my mom's garage when we started it. So I go to the post office and I run in. 2 minutes later, I run out. Doors are frozen shut. And I'm like, come on. So then I have to like call my mom to come over. I'm like, Mom, bring me a jacket and like bring me some hot water in a cup. So I'm pouring hot water on the Ferrari outside of the post office in Dumont, New Jersey. It was just, it was quite the relationship. If there are ever the good old memories of starting a business and grinding it out, and like that first girlfriend story, like that car was the first girlfriend. We've been through thick and thin, and it went out in a blaze of glory. So cheers to that. I'm not going to pour it out for the homies, but that Ferrari, cheers. Don't steer away from Euro Ferraris. They're pretty good. There's no difference, really. People like to think that it's a Euro. It's not that cool. It's perfectly fine. It's like a different bumper. So, cheers to you.
I loved the way the Avalon King ceramic coating worked on my Porsche 993, so I was excited to try it out on my LP640. We put a clear bra on the car, but then on top of that, we put the ceramic coating to make it easier to clean. And after a 2,000-mile road trip, all the bugs just sprayed right off. It worked great on my car, and you should try it on yours, so there's a link in the description below for a discount.